Okay, I'm live, as you can see, and back with another edition of Author Advice. And today we're going to be talking about Patreon. I hope everybody can see and hear me okay. And this segment is going to be, as I said, about Patreon and whether or not it is something that is useful to you as a writer, the pros, the cons, whatnot. Now, a little bit about my experience with Patreon before I begin. I joined up in 2018 and I have since left, which I will get into as this goes on. So, and explain the reasons why I left. So, anyway, first of all, what is Patreon? Patreon is basically a site for artists, visual artists, YouTubers, video people, filmmakers, writers, where they can go on, they can create a page, and they can get people to sign up to tiers and pay a monthly subscription, more or less, to get their content that they post to these tiers. Now, you can also post free content so people can follow you and get free stuff and see if they like you and want to join the tiers and, the whole rigmarole of that. So this is the basic premise of Patreon. The question is it good for writers, especially for indie writers? And my answer to that is it depends, but probably for most indie writers, it's probably not the best site to be on. Now, that is to say, Patreon is not a bad site. It is a good site. In fact, it's a great site for what it is. Unfortunately, for what it is, probably doesn't line up well with most indie writers, especially indie writers that don't have a big following, aren't making a lot of money, or just starting out. This is probably not the site you want to be on. As enticing as it seems to be able to have a place to make extra cash, it's probably going to be a lot of work for no or little reward. If you do not have, and this is a big if you do not have a following or fan base that will migrate with you over to Patreon and sign up to your tiers, unless you have that established already, you're not going to be able to get new followers on Patreon. This is the one thing they really don't tell you about the site, but you cannot build a following on that site. There's no way to cross promote. Their search sucks. I mean, really, that is the one thing I did not. I mean, you try and search for someone that you know has a Patreon page, it's not easy to find them. So basically, all your promoting for your Patreon page is done off-site. So you're stuck with the same thing you already have. Social media sites trying to get you out is just another site you're trying to push on social media, basically. So if you do not have an established following on Patreon, you're not going to get one there. Okay? If you don't have an established following on social media and they're not going to follow you over to Patreon, you're not going to get a new one on Patreon. And that's the main problem I had with the site, is that you really cannot get followers if you don't already have them. And if you already have them and they're already buying your books, why do you need Patreon unless you just have a lot of extra content and want to earn money? Now, this is the caveats. Okay, so if you do have a lot of extra content, you have a lot of flash fiction, you have a lot of short stories, you have a lot of, say, book extras, like world building stuff or magic systems that you want to write about or whatever, and you want a place to put that content, you have a fan base, you have a following already who wants to read this stuff and has no problem following you on Patreon and paying for it, then Patreon's a great place. Make a page, set up your tiers, get your extra content up and going, and get your fans over there to pay for it. And then you can make a little extra money. No problem. If you don't have this, if you don't have the time, then Patreon's not going to pay off for you. I was there for a year. I got 2 followers during the entire time the year I was over there. Now, granted, I wasn't particularly regular with it, which probably was do some of the, but I did promote to my newsletter. I did promote to my group, and I never got my followers to come over to Patreon. It's just, some people just don't want to migrate over from, say, they're comfortable on Facebook. They don't want to migrate over. They don't have the extra cash to pay for the extra content. So you really have to know who your followers are and who your fans are if you're going to make a Patreon page. Because if they're not going to come with you, you're not going to get new ones. So, and that said, it also takes a lot of time to set up your Patreon content, not the page. The page is pretty easy to go through. I mean, there's a bit of confusing things that you have to learn, like tiers and rewards and whatever, but that's your learning curve with anything. So, that said, it takes time to post the content, because if you don't have ready to post content, you have to create it. And if you have to create it, of course, that's time. It takes time away from your writing, whatever. So that takes a lot of time. So you have to post the content, and you have to post the content regularly if you have followers. I mean, if you don't have followers, it really doesn't matter, to be honest, because there's no one there that see it. But if you do have followers, you're going to have to post content on a regular basis to make, because, I mean, they're paying you money on a monthly subscription. So you have to give them the value for their money. So so if you want to be on Patreon and you have the followers, you're going to have to put in the time there as well. So you'll have to take that into account. And like I said, a lot of indie authors don't have that extra time. So it might not be worth it to you if you don't have the extra time. And okay, and oh yes, and so remember that you need a follower fan base to begin with, one that's willing to migrate you to Patreon, and you need the time to create and post the content. If you have those two requirements, then Patreon might be a good fit for you, because you can make money over there if you have some subscribers. The trouble is, you need to get the subscribers, which is something I never quite accomplished, which is one of the reasons why I left. As I said, I only had 2. The first one I had, which brings me up to the next problem with Patreon, which is there are some slight flaws in the payment system, and I'll get to this with my followers. First follower I had followed me for a month and left on the first tier. It was only $1 tier. He followed me for a month, but left about 2 days before the payment schedule, and basically got the entire month's content for free. So yeah, so that is one payment flaw in the system with Patreon. The other payment flaw are declined payments. Now, this may or may not happen depending on your followers, but there are oh geez, I blanked. Okay, just hang on a minute. Oh yeah, there are people on there who join and their payments, they put in bogus information or whatever, their credit cards don't work, things happen. So you are going to get declined payments. Maybe not. It depends really on who your followers are, but that is a problem over there. Anyway, so we now have a question. So how many subscribers do you need to make money? Now that depends really on your tiers. Because what you do on Patreon is you set up tiers. Now you charge whatever you want for the tiers. When I had my page up, I had a $1 tier for my Drabbles, which is $1 a month. I had a $2. Yeah, I think I had a $2 tier for my poetry. I had a $5 tier for my book extras. And I think I had, or was it a $3? I changed the prices on them, trying to figure out what to fit. So I think it was something like $3 for my short stories and $5, $10 for my book extras, $3 for my book extras, $5 for my short stories, or a month. This is a month they subscribe. So like I said, it depends on how many so what tiers your subscribers are subscribing to. Like if you only had $1 subscribers, you would make $1 a month if you had 1 subscriber, $3 a month if you had 3 subscribers. If you had a $5 tier and you had 2 subscribers, you make $10 a month. So it really depends on what content you're producing, how quickly it's coming up, and what you're charging for each tier as to how many subscribers you need to make money. I mean, basically, you're making money whenever someone subscribes to a tier. How much money you make per tier is how many subscribers, depends on how many subscribers you have and how much you're charging per tier. And I hope that did not confuse too many people. So yeah, so really it depends on what tier they're subscribed to, how much you're charging per tier, as to how much money you're going to make per month. Now this is all, the one I was doing was per month. They have another system where you can charge per content, which is basically you charge a set rate for whatever you're posting. Like if you were going to post excerpts, you could charge like $2 an excerpt, or short stories, maybe $5 a short story, whatever. So they have that option as well. Now, like I said, it's not a bad site, but it really depends on your level of how many followers you already have, or how many followers you think you can scrounge up to follow you on Patreon. Because as I said, the site itself is not set up to gain followers. You already have to bring what you have over. And also, there's one more thing for writers in particular, is that the site is set up a lot better for visual artists and for video. So if you have, say, you have artwork content, maybe you, like me, I had some art, I do some art on the side. That might be an option for a tier, character sketches or whatever. And they're now doing live videos, so that's an option for a tier you could do. And so I know some authors do, like I'm doing now, author advice segments for their tiers, which is good. And I mean, and you can make a go of it, but as I said, it's kind of iffy for people who do not have an established following already. So I'm saying Patreon is good for artists with caveats. You need an established following, you need the time to post the content, and you need good content to post as well. Like if you wanted, I know some authors are doing like a serial book, not a serial killer book, but a serial as in they post a chapter by chapter on the site for one of their tiers. So that's an option too. Anyway, so as I said, personally, I found it disappointing. For me, I posted content and didn't get followers, didn't have followers follow me over to Patreon. So this is why I left. It just didn't work for me. It may work for other writers. I know several writers it does work for. So I think you really have to decide whether you have the time and the followers, and because it does take a lot of time and you're going to have to put time into it. And if you don't have it, then I would suggest you don't try it, because it is a site you are going to have to spend time on. It's not like a post and run site. You do have to work at it, and you do have to keep your content. If you do have followers that are paying for it, you do have to keep your content up to date and current. I mean, if you have to take a break, now this is one good thing about Patreon. If you have to take a break, say you have a personal issues and you just can't post that month, you can pause your subscription. So the followers you do have to your tiers don't get charged for that month, and you can take a little break if you need to. So that's a good option on it too. So that is a good. Oh my, we have thunder. Okay, so that's it. So like I said, Patreon is a good site writers can excel on it, but it just depends on what type of writer you are, if you have the time, if you have the followers. And as I said, for most indie writers, I would say it's probably not worth it, or just give it a try and see if you like it. Because, like I said, it really, really, really takes a lot of your time. And if you don't have the time to put into it, it's not going to pay off for you. So anyway, that's basically all I have to say about Patreon. It's okay. It may be good for you. It may not be good for you. I didn't like it myself. I found it was a lot of work for very little reward. And if you are like me and you don't have the big followers, the great loyal fan base that will follow you across the deserts just to get a scrap or crumb of your writing, then you might want to skip it. If you do have the loyal fan base and they are willing to pay for pretty much anything you write, then you might want to give it a try, because you can make money at it. I mean, I did make about $9 the last few months when I did have one follower. So there's that. So, I mean, you can make money if you can get the followers. So I'll leave whether or not you feel like, I hope that explains some of what Patreon can do for writers and what it can't do for writers. And I'm going to leave it at that for today. And I will probably won't be back until December. Okay, Joe asks a question. Just a minute here. If I go back to it, if your audience base grows bigger, I would possibly go back to it. I mean, I haven't removed my page. I just deactivated it. And I might go back to it if my audience base got bigger and bigger. Because, I mean, like I said, it is a good place to be if you do have a loyal fan base and you have a lot of extra stuff. I mean, I do have a lot of extra things I could post. And I do, like my flash fiction, I've got a lot of that stuff. And I did do a lot of posting of my Drabble serials on there. They were crazy and nutty, and I love doing them. So, yeah. But right now, it's just a lot of work for not as much a reward, and I don't have the time to do it. But if I got a bigger audience base and I didn't have to work quite as hard to get the followers, yeah, I might go back to it. Because, I mean, I didn't dislike it as a site, just like I said, just disappointed in the results was mostly what happened with me. The site isn't bad. It's a good site. I was just disappointed in the results I got for using the site. And that's not exactly the site's fault, because, I mean, it's set up the way it is, and the way it's set up, it works. The way it's set up just didn't work for me. And it might not work for a lot of writers like me, which is why I'm doing the video. So anyway, back to what I was saying, which is I probably won't be back with another author advice until December, because I'm doing NaNoWriMo, and I'm probably going to go crazy writing a novel in 30 days, as usual, in November. So I probably will not have the time to do another author advice until December. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be coming back with in December. I may be doing a tutorial on how to do your own cover, or I might be doing something else. I haven't quite decided yet. So I'm going to sign off for today. And this is me talking about Patreon and rambling incoherently for some of it. So bye.